Joining us right now, ladies and gentlemen, is a man who's in multiple Hall of Fames for broadcasting. He is one of the loudest New York Jets fans. Excited to get his take on everything. Haven't talked to him in a while. It's always great to see him. Ladies and gentlemen, host of Get Up and hashtag Greeny, Mike Greenberg.
Hey, Greeny.
How are you, Greeny?
Guys, well, I'm very busy preparing for my interview to be the general manager of the Jets. I can't tell you how much time and energy I'm putting into this. It's not something I have a great deal of experience with, but I'm very flattered to be given the opportunity. So I'm cramming like crazy. Any advice you have will be very much welcome.
Okay, so we all thought Mike Greenberg was the salary cap gymnast from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting the interview for the general manager job, not Greeny, but from what it sounds like, you were the guy. A lot of people have gone from TV right into either front office or head coaching. I think you'd be the right guy over there, Greeny, because remember, Brick Johnson heard you say it. You would cut off your dong for this Jets team to be good.
Yeah.
They need that type of passion in that building, Greeny. That's what they need.
Let me give you an example of just how incredibly stupid people are. The number of people who believe this is me is overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about random people responding to Shefty's tweet. I'm talking about friends of mine, people in my life, sending me notes saying things like, "Is this real?" And I don't even know how to respond to those people. What they're doing is they're demonstrating to me, they're letting their guard down, and I realize, oh, you're actually a complete idiot. I don't have any. So I feel like I'm going to lose friends over this thing, lest there be any confusion.
Yeah.
I am not being considered for the general manager's job of the New York Jets.
Put it on the SeatGeek ticker. Put it on the SeatGeek ticker. That is breaking news. Greeny will not be the general manager of the Jets, although I assume a lot of Jets fans wish that was the case. Let's talk about the Jets situation and then the current state of all these NFL positions before we look ahead to Super Wildcard Weekend, which is going to be awesome. You guys have general manager up and head coach up. And obviously the 33rd team, which you know very well because Tannenbaum, who founded it, is on your program on a very regular basis. They're consulting. It feels like they just put a list together of every human that's available to be the head coach. And now we're hearing Rex Ryan talk, and Rex is like, hey, I'm the best guy for the job. How do you think it's going to pan out? What would you like to see? And do they get coach before GM or GM before coach? How do you think it kind of goes going forward?
Okay, so let's start with Rex. So he is interviewing right now, or at least his interview was this morning. And I have no idea how it has gone, and I will not ask him. You know, there's a line, as you know, with friends. And it's interesting to me. I don't know how you do this because you have so many relationships with people that we cover, and I have none. I have made a point of trying to have none or next to none because it puts me in this impossible position. Rex, and you know him, Pat, from the years that you were with us on Mondays.
Love him.
For all of his bluster and all of his craziness, he has the biggest heart of any human being you will ever meet. He's genuinely the nicest person in the world. So I am hopelessly biased in hoping that he gets this job because he wants it so badly. And when you care about someone as much as I care about that guy after all these years we've been working together, I want to see him get it because he wants it so badly. I also don't think it's insane. The reality of it is this. There are three things that will go down, that will decide how this goes. One is, are you a leader of men? Rex is definitely that. Two, can you coach one side of the ball or the other? Rex definitely has that. He is, if not the greatest, then among the greatest defensive coaches in recent NFL memory. I think if he gets the right offensive coach in place, I don't know who this person is. Maybe you guys have a better idea than I do. But whoever the next Kevin O'Connell is, whoever the next Ben Johnson is, whoever that person waiting for that opportunity is, if Rex gets that guy, then I see no reason in the world why it can't succeed. I can tell you it would be very popular. I walk the streets of this city every single day. And I can't tell you how many people yell at me, Greeny, is Rex going to get this job? We need to bring Rex back. Jet fans love him. So I think he would walk in with a lot of goodwill for whatever that is worth. So that's the first answer to your question. I'm hopelessly biased. I would love to see Rex get it because he wants it so badly. As far as the GM and coach thing, the Jets are one of the NFL teams, and they're not the only one, that do not tie them together, which is to say the coach answers directly to the owner and the general manager answers directly to the owner. I don't like that. I've never liked it. I've never thought it was a good way to do business.
I think
You
it's
guys
crop.
might.
I think it's crop. I think it's shite. I think it's stupid. They should be on the same page. Personally, that's basically what you just said there. Yeah, it makes sense.
That's what I think. I think those two people have to work like this. You have to have a general. Otherwise, what you wind up with is agendas. Okay, and look, life is all agendas, right? Everyone has an agenda. Everyone wants success, and they want to receive the credit and the good things that come from the success. If the coach and the general manager are not aligned, if they are not in complete lockstep, then what you are doing is opening the door for each of them to have separate agendas. And the moment things start to go sideways, they're each going to point the finger at the other one. I think that you need the two of them to be completely joined at the hip. So the Jets have an opportunity to do that because both jobs are open at the same time. Frequently, they've not done that. When they fired Mike Tannenbaum, they kept Rex. They hired John Idzik. Then they fired Rex. He hired a different coach. We've seen this cycle with NFL teams all the time, and it sucks. It almost never works. So they have a great opportunity now. So I think you either choose the general manager that you believe in more than anyone else in the world and let that guy pick the coach, or you hire the coach that you believe in more than anyone else in the world, and you say to him, okay, who do you want to be your general manager? Who do you want to work with? But I want those two people joined together.
Yeah, and there's been coaches that have more power than a GM. The GM's been working for the coach, and if you hired Rex Ryan, I think that'd be a smart decision to be like, hey, Rex, who do you want to pseudo work for you here as the general manager on the back end, handling the salary cap, handling it all? Maybe it is Mike Greenberg because he's been able to do all of those things, not this Mike Greenberg, but actually Mike Greenberg down there in Tampa Bay because he's been ahead of all of this shit that everybody else is doing. You got Rex Ryan, let him pick these are the type of guys I want. This is who I want. This is how we want to do. You figure it out on the back end. That could be a match made in heaven. Who knows what Woody Johnson will do going forward. And what you just referenced there about hiring a coach and then firing a GM and then bringing a GM, firing coach. Tennessee Titans are kind of in the middle of that right now down the AFC South. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, Greeny, how do you feel about the AFC South? Pat just mentioned it. The Titans are looking for a GM. Jags are looking for a coach and possibly a GM, pending if Shad Khan gets a word from the new head coach that Balky's an idiot and then he'll make a change, is what he said. And then obviously the Colts kept both their guys, but what do you think about the entire division as a whole, and who do you think is kind of set up best for success between the Colts, Titans, and Jags, especially with the draft coming up for all three of those teams?
Probably, look, the only way to answer that question is with another question. Have we decided Trevor Lawrence just isn't going to be the guy that we thought he was going to be? I'm old enough to remember when Trevor Lawrence was the best prospect to come out of college in generations. He would have been the first pick in 3 different drafts. So if he, and there's a question I've been trying to get to on Get Up each of the last 2 days, and we haven't gotten it in because other stuff got hot, but we will get it in. If you were, and so maybe I can answer your question this way.
Get it in.
If you were a coach and you had the choice between coaching Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, and Drake May, all 3 of whom have openings, which one would you choose? If you're a coach, the quarterback is the most important. In this day and age, when guys get fired after 2 bad seasons, you got to have a quarterback who's ready to go right now. Which guy would you choose? If the answer is not Trevor Lawrence, then the Jacksonville job is the worst of them because you're locked into paying him $1 trillion. If he's not actually that good, that's not a great opportunity. I don't like where the Titans sit at all because I do the podcast with Mel and Field every week. And I think I don't believe that either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are a lock. And look, they might, either one of them might wind up being terrific, but I don't. If they were in any of the most recent drafts, they would not have been the first or second quarterback taken. So I don't think that's a slam dunk at the top of that draft.
Interesting.
The Colts, I don't know. I keep reading on Twitter from some guy named McAfee that they're just a freaking mess. They seem to have everything in the world going wrong. So I'll say the Texans by default, but they've been a disappointment. Like I felt like they were ready. They were a very sexy pick to go to the Super Bowl, and now all of a sudden I got people. They're an underdog at home to the Chargers this weekend. So I guess I would say the Texans, but it would be by default. That's the worst division in the sport.
Whoa. Great fans. Not all sports. Everybody needs to relax. I'm sure there's some stupid MLB division, South Side something.
The NL Central.
There
Dog
it is.
shite.
There it is. North Central
When
League.
the Buccos are in.
Shite.
Not the Paul Skeens.
No, the Reds.
No, it is not
Central's
Paul.
dominant.
It is not the worst division in all of sports.
It's not.
There's some MLS crap that is
The
somewhere.
Atlantic Division in the MLS.
That's
No, it's
not
just
a
East
sport.
and West, brother.
Well, the Atlanta United and the Portland Timbers are holding up both sides of that
doesn't
entire
count.
thing. So somewhere over in England, which one is the up the Clarets in?
The
What are they-
The championship.
That's the worst one in all of sports.
That's G League, though. It doesn't count either.
Jeez,
F1's the worst division of all.
Yeah, what's their divisions? Red Bull, Mercedes. Shite 2, Shite 3.
Respect.
Okay, so anyways, the AFC South might be the worst division in all of sports. And I want to let you know, I'm a believer in this Colts team for next year.
Sure.
Okay, we're bringing all the same guys back.
New
Breaking.
DC.
That breaking?
Yeah, put it on the ticker. I believe in it.
Yeah.
Wait till you see what.
Everyone but Gus. He's the fall guy.
Oh, yeah, Gus is out.
I'm pumped to see what happens down there. But you talked about Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, or Drake May. And the reason why I was laughing while you're giving the answer is because I was being accosted by a
Harassed.
New England Patriots fan
Not
over
true.
here saying, you better say Drake May right now. You better stop Greeny right there. That is not a question. Trevor Lawrence, very expensive. Caleb Williams, with everything going on in Chicago, is he going to be a guy? I think he is. But there's going to be a lot that's going to have to get sorted there. Drake May was able to do a lot with a very poor surrounding around him.
least.
And he's taller than Josh Allen, it looked like, in the photos.
He's big son of a bitch.
And everything with
A lot
that.
of injuries, though.
And they got a huge salary cap. They got a lot of cap space going into next year.
They have $130 million in cap space. They have the fourth pick in the draft, and they have their quarterback of the future in place. And I would agree the answer to the question is Drake May. I still think under the right circumstances, Caleb Williams, I think in a vacuum, Caleb Williams is more gifted than Drake May, but football isn't played in a vacuum.
What's that mean?
I was incredibly impressed with what I saw from May this year. I think if I were a coach and I could choose any situation that is currently available in the NFL right now, the one I would choose is New England.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people assuming that, which is why everybody he's dabbed over there. I mean, that is wonderful that you just did that. Shout out to Cam Newton, by the way. I appreciate and respect. You said gifted. Drake May is this tall.
Yeah, he's huge.
Drake May is
fast.
He is. I mean, now Caleb obviously can move, and his ability to make plays on the run and everything like that is certainly phenomenal. But Drake May led UNC in rushing and obviously passing, and he is 6'13". He is so big. It is unbelievable. So going forward, I can't wait to watch all of them. This rookie class, Bo, Jaden, Drake. You talk about Caleb, whether he's going to be able to get going. What is Penix going to do down in Atlanta with another year? Because they're just getting rid of Kirk, it sounds like. That saved them $10 million. He's going to be back out there. I think Schefter said there's going to be 7 quarterback-needy teams this offseason coming up. You know, obviously you put those ones into the conversation there. Kirk's going to be available. Sam Darnold's going to be available. Aaron Rodgers might be available. What are your thoughts on all of that? Greeny, are we going to see another class of quarterbacks hit their second wind with another team this upcoming offseason and season?
Look, I think if there's something that we've learned, it is that giving up on a quarterback too soon is a big mistake. Look at Bryce Young. Look at the finish that the Panthers had. The Panthers had a very good second half of the season. They had great losses to go along with some nice wins, and Bryce Young now looks like he's going to be the player they hoped he was going to be. Look at Baker Mayfield. Look at Sam Darnold. It's all about the situations these guys wind up in. I'm fascinated by the Aaron thing, and obviously you guys know him way better than I do. I watched Enigma. I assume you guys saw it. And he remains, without any close competition, the most interesting person in sports. I mean, that was the most fascinating, freaky, wild ride I've ever seen in a sports documentary in my entire life. Episode 2 it blew my mind as one who had heard the word ayahuasca, but would have to admit I really didn't know details of what it actually was. To see people doing it was quite the experience. But here's what I took away from Enigma more than anything. This is not the way Aaron envisioned himself going out. No way in hell. That piece, that 3-piece documentary was designed to be the coda to walking off like John Elway did, and he even mentions it in one of the episodes, Elway walking off with a championship. You guys know him 100 times better than I do, so I guess I would put this in the form of a question, AJ, particularly you. I believe that once he's had 2-3 weeks, whatever it is, to do whatever he does to unwind and relax, I believe he's going to decide he wants to play again. I don't know that the Jets is the best situation for him, and I don't know that he's the best situation for them. That's a different question. But I think Rodgers will play again, and I think when you talk about quarterback-needy teams, we were actually playing a game at dinner last night, which is the right spot for Rodgers to wind up. And the place that we came up with was San Francisco. I think San Francisco is a really interesting one. It's where it all started for him. He knows the offense. They have to make a really interesting decision there. Are they going to pay Brock Purdy $50-55 million a year going forward? Yeah. That just feels like one of the options. But I personally will be shocked, and I don't know if you guys agree, will be shocked if Rodgers doesn't decide he wants to play another year.
We'll be talking to Aaron Rodgers tomorrow. He's currently en route to wherever he is relaxing and spending the next couple weeks to clear.
Is it Costa Rica by any chance?
Nah, I don't know if it's Costa Rica or the jungle, and I don't think it's a darkness retreat either. He said he's done with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Feels like he is happy he never has to do that again. Every time he talks about it, it's like, we're okay not doing that one.
Wasn't that fun?
Do you remember he won in, we were a part of that whole thing.
Four days, and can't even see the toilet. Yeah.
And then he comes out, a lot of missed texts from the Packers. We're done. Holy shit. Then that starts the entire Jets situation, which had so much hope. And you talk about him wanting to go out like Elway. It's like, I think everybody had dreams of what the Jets could be whenever Aaron goes over there, especially you watch them whenever they're playing good here like this last weekend or maybe a couple weeks ago whenever everything's kind of hitting. It's like that's what we were all kind of hoping for and dreaming of. I agree with what your statement is, that I don't think it's done for Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk to him tomorrow. You said San Francisco. There's some Steelers fans that say that. Then there's maybe the Brett Favre route. AJ has a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, who knows where Aaron's going to go? I am very curious as to what his decision may be. I have no idea either way. I haven't directly asked him. But, Greeny, when you kind of shook your head when Pat mentioned Sam Darnold going somewhere else, what do you think the Vikings are going to do, especially if, let's say, Sam takes him on a deep playoff run? They're going to try to franchise him. They're going to keep him. Like, what happens with the Minnesota Vikings next year at the quarterback position?
I think it's a very risky roll of the dice to let him get out of the building right now. They have the situation in their control. You know, it's such a week-to-week league. A week ago that, his teammates are carrying him on their shoulders and the entire world loves him. And a week later, he has a very bad night in the red zone against a Detroit defense and in a wild environment, and suddenly people act like there were questions. I liked the idea of trading J.J. McCarthy. I think Darnold has proved that in this offense, he is more than good enough. J.J. McCarthy, if he were in this year's draft, would be the number 1 pick. So if you are a team that has a top 10 pick and needs a quarterback, why wouldn't you trade that to Minnesota? So Minnesota can keep Darnold. They can franchise him if they don't feel 100% certain about him forever. Or they can try and make a deal with him. Maybe he takes a slightly team-friendly one because he recognizes that this has revitalized his entire career. And the Vikings can add a top 10 pick in the draft by trading McCarthy. I think that would make a lot of sense. Just look on this list of teams here that are going to need quarterbacks. There are only 2 that are going to be drafted in the first half of the first round, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. There are far more teams than that are going to be looking for quarterbacks. So why wouldn't those teams give up one of those high picks for J.J. McCarthy, who, again, would be the highest rated quarterback if he were in this year's class? So that's, if I were in their shoes, barring something terrible happening in L.A. this Monday night, I think, AJ, that's the direction I'd be looking to go.
Okay, so J.J. McCarthy traded out of Minnesota to another quarterback-needy team. Kirk Cousins is going to be on the market. Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the market. Cam Ward is going to be one of the guys that one of these teams is going to take. Shedeur Sanders is going to be one of the guys because there's still some spots open. There's going to be some massive deals coming to quarterbacks this offseason. The ones that are going to blow our mind. I don't want to go back to Trevor Lawrence, but remember, they're paying him, $50 million a year?
Oh, yeah.
55 million a year. And obviously we see Sean Payton dance around the salary cap, dead hit and everything like that with getting rid of Russell Wilson, but that's not easy everywhere. So whoever goes in there to Jacksonville is going to have to figure out with Trevor, but there's going to be teams that are going to open up a big vault. Like if Sam Darnold was to get out there, I mean, that $55 million is probably what a team would be willing to pay after what he has showcased. But will he do what you alluded to, which is understand that Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, his offensive line, the defense we have, even though B-Flow might be gone after the season with a head coaching job, it's like that's a wagon over there in Minnesota. I don't like how the Vikings fans have just completely assumed they're dead now because they lose to the Lions last week. They were going for the number one seed in the NFC. They lose to the Lions in devastating fashion. And the Vikings fans that I know are like, it's over. It's like, whoa.
History. They've
been snake bit a lot.
They know.
Come on, you're in the dance.
New year.
You're in the dance. Let's talk.
And they're a road favorite on Monday night. They're favored to win. I think that their draw is not that bad. I agree. I like the Vikings in that game Monday night in LA. That'll be a Vikings home game. As far as fans, I mean, everything outside of the actual location of the game. I like them to win that, and then we'll see what winds up happening. They may wind up right back in Detroit again, or crazy things could happen. This Jalen Hurts thing bears keeping a very close eye on. We are living in a world where it is not a certainty that Jalen Hurts is going to be able to play for the Eagles this weekend against Green Bay, and if he is not, then I don't know that they definitely win that game. So I think the NFC, look, the NFC, it's just the first time in a long, the AFC, I see three teams. I would bet you anything anyone wanted to bet, and I'm obviously not
cut your dong off
going out on a limb here, that one of three teams will wind up in the Super Bowl from the AFC, Kansas City, Buffalo, or Baltimore. From the NFC, I really don't think you can say that. I wouldn't be stunned if practically any of them got there. I guess I would be surprised if Tampa got there.
Man.
But I wouldn't be that shocked if any of the NFC teams won.
That's what everybody in Detroit would say?
Yeah, Greeny, on Sunday night, the defense playing that well didn't change your mind at all about the Detroit Lions, because we know the offense is going to score points. I think the defense looks so good. I think a lot of Lions fans are saying we can win the Super Bowl now, whereas a couple of weeks ago we were not saying that.
Hembo stat, too, that I got.
They would be my favorite. I mean, if you asked me to pick right now, I would pick Detroit. But if you told me Philadelphia was going to go in there and beat them in a tough game, I would believe it. If you told me Minnesota was going to go in there again and play much better and beat them, I would believe it. If you told me Green Bay wound up there again and beat them, I would believe it. If you told me the Rams were going to go in there with Stafford and find a way to win that game, I would believe it. Would I pick it? No. But I wouldn't be nearly as shocked, let's put it that way, as I would be if the Steelers went into Kansas City and beat them.
Agreed. Hey, listen, I understand what you're saying. The Detroit Lions are a wagon, though, and I think it's abnormal for a lot of people to understand that at this point. All of us are kind of in a whirlwind for what the Detroit Lions are. I think Anzalone coming back is a massive ordeal.
100%. It changed everything.
And I got a Hembo stat about Aaron Glenn. He brought 6+ people 16 times this past Sunday night. That's the most by any team all season. And it's like in the biggest game, Aaron Glenn emptied the clip. And I like that. I like their mindset is. Let's go back over to the AFC side there. There's a couple quarterbacks that are obviously in massive conversation. Go ahead, D-Butch.
Yeah, you talked about those top three teams, Green, obviously with the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Now, Patrick Mahomes, he is who he is, cemented legacy. But Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, great seasons. Either one of them could be the MVP. Who has more pressure on them to win the Super Bowl this year? Going into the dance.
Come on, Greeny.
It's kind of like a Get Up. Shout out to Get Up, too. Biggest December ever. I saw this week.
Congratulations.
So pressure comes in a lot of different forms. Patrick Mahomes could do something that no one, even Tom Brady, ever did in the Super Bowl era. Bart Starr did it, and some others did it in an era of football that we generally don't count anymore. Patrick Mahomes can win a three-peat and can probably begin the conversation immediately. February 10th, we can start having the conversation, is he the greatest quarterback of all time if he wins? That is a level of pressure. But there's no downside in him not winning it this year. He's not going to win it every year of his career. Brady played 20-something years and won 7 of them. So in that regard, I think there is less pressure on Mahomes than either of the other two. Lamar Jackson is missing one thing, and we all know what it is, from being placed into historical perspective. Lamar Jackson, with 2 MVPs at his age, with the numbers that he has put up, the winning percentage that he has, and the style that he has played it in, I think is a Super Bowl championship away from being in the conversations with the great quarterbacks of all time. Not at the top or even particularly near it yet, but he starts being placed in historical perspective. So that's an enormous level of pressure. If he doesn't, then the narrative that he can't win the big one will continue. It stayed with Peyton Manning until he finally won the big one, and I think it stays with Lamar. I actually brought that up to Jeff Saturday on Get Up this morning, because I think there are real similarities there. Manning was so dominant in regular seasons and then wasn't able to win playoff games. I was at the game that they lost to the Jets 41-0 in the playoffs, that Manning had never gotten out of the first round. And I was hosting a show then, Mike and Mike, in which the topic was Peyton Manning can't win the big one. That's where Lamar is until he wins the big one. That's going to be the conversation. Josh Allen, I think because he has accomplished a little less in the regular season than Lamar, you would place him a half a step below that. But he also is playing to be recognized at the very top of all of this. So I guess if you made me pick one, I would say the one under the most pressure is Lamar Jackson. But in their own ways, I think all three of them have an enormous amount at stake, in particular Mahomes, who I think has the most to gain.
Yeah, there's certainly pressure as an NFL quarterback, but whenever you're talking about historic perspective, it takes it to another level. All eyes will be on them. Do you have an AP vote?
I don't. I don't have a vote for anything. I actually still vote in the NBA. They gave me a vote when I was hosting the NBA show, and so I continue to vote in the NBA. I do not have any votes. I believe Allen is going to win. I assume you're going to ask me who I think is going to win MVP. I think Allen is going to win in large part because it's a narrative award. It just feels like it's his turn. I was covering the NBA. Michael Jordan should have won the MVP. See, MVP is a flawed way to judge a player's greatness. Okay. When you look back on it, because look how many MVPs LeBron James has. Look how many MVPs Michael Jordan has. You tell me how many times they were actually the best player in the league. Are you kidding? So this thing is a narrative. It sort of becomes someone's turn. I feel like it's Allen's turn because this was a year Buffalo was supposed to dip and they haven't, because he's been so ridiculously good for so long and hasn't won it, because Lamar won it just a year ago. Even though Lamar's numbers, everything about his performance has been better than it was a year ago. I think it's Allen's turn, and thus I think he will win it. And that, I think, is one of the flaws with the MVP award. In all sports, there's a lot of narrative attached to it, which is fine, but it means that when we look back on a player's career, counting up their MVPs is not a great way to judge how great they were.
Well, that's legitimately how it is judged, though. Whenever people start talking Hall of Fames, and I don't know the NBA as well as I know the NFL, but as soon as they start putting resumes up for guys that are finalists for the Hall of Fame, it's like, here's how many MVPs, here's how many Defense Player of the Years, how many championships. I think those obviously matter a lot more, but the MVPs are held in the same regard almost as championships. And what did Acho tell us to remember whenever we're talking about this entire thing?
Was it be consistent?
No, he was saying we're having two different conversations. People are having two different conversations. It's valuable or it's best. It's not the same thing. Make sure everybody's having the same discussion.
I think somewhere in there he also said just be consistent.
All right, we're in the facility now, obviously. Shout out Greeny for joining us. Let's go to a man who does have an AP vote and is never going to get it right and is a part of the problem, if you will. Go ahead, Tone.
That's 100% true. But Greeny, watching Get Up this morning, what a wonderful program you guys have, and learned about this video from Get Up this morning. It was Jerry Jones talking about Mike McCarthy and his contract and interviewing. I'll let Jerry talk because, we can't talk for Jerry.
Jerry, is there a reality where Mike is back with a different offensive play call?
Well, anything is possible. And because of contract status.
The guy behind him.
Most of the fans that I have, most of the fans want everybody to be on the incentive plan. Everybody wants it to be on the incentive plan. And so the more you can have the incentive plan, to me, the better you've got the way sports is aligned with sports and a goal of having accomplishment, and you align that with the financial end of it. For instance, I might say, look, I'm going to pay you this much, but then I'll pay you not anymore, and I know you want twice that.
Okay.
But if you get to the playoffs or you win a Super Bowl, I'll give you 5 times that.
Oh, you play 75%.
The guy across the street might
Fans
are wrapping their arms around it from behind it.
Exactly, and then you've got a decision. For sure.
I'm a Kleenex.
How can he know that if he's not allowed to talk to you until January 14th?
He's a great
I
actor,
would say
though.
go talk.
He told Mike McCarthy to go talk.
I really would. Go talk.
So it sounds like you
I
will
just
allow
let
him.
Zeke do that.
Gotcha.
Just signed with Chargers.
I don't want anybody here. That's not healthy to have somebody around that wants to be someplace else. Really, it's not. And there's too many ways for everybody to go to be around where you don't want to be.
Of course.
So Greeny, so when Jerry's saying, it's not good to have guys around who want to, does he know that he hasn't given Mike McCarthy an extension or a contract, and he does have to give him permission to go talk, or is he just going to hold him in limbo forever?
Look, it's so hard to have this conversation because I don't want things to sound disrespectful. I think all of us know less about football for having listened to those 45 seconds. There's literally nothing that he just said that made any sense at all. There are so many things the fans would like, but it's just not the way the sport has ever been. Yes, there are incentives, and by the way, the Cowboys actually just made sure that their backup quarterback Cooper Rush I did not
know that. They told me that
yeah,
before the game. I was
of course
training.
not.
Everybody's calling me
$250,000 incentive. So none of the things he just said, and I hate this to sound as disrespectful as it does. Literally none of it made sense. Okay, there's not one thing he just said that made sense. So it's very hard to react to any part of it. Here's what I will say. If you want to suggest that what he's doing that there's a plan involved in what he's doing, then the way it would make sense, and I don't think that this is what's actually happening, but here's how it would make sense is if you're trying to have your cake and eat it too, which is to say you have someone in mind that you want to see if you can get them. And if you can't get them, you want to bring Mike McCarthy back. And you can't bring back McCarthy until you don't want to officially bring back McCarthy until you find that out. So let him go. Count on the fact that if he goes and interviews in Chicago or New Orleans or whatever it is, that if you tell him you want him back, that he will come back, that he'll want to stay where he's been, and he won't want to leave the Dallas Cowboys because of all of the things that come with being the Dallas Cowboys. And so if there's someone in mind, and I don't know who that would be, but that could be anyone from Ben Johnson to Deion Sanders to once upon a time I thought it would have been Bill Belichick, but that obviously ship has sailed, or whoever it might be, Steve Sarkisian, anyone who it is, you have it in your mind. If I could get that guy, I will hire him and not bring back McCarthy. That's the way this would make sense. Now, the timing of it probably has no chance of working. And again, I'm probably giving them much, much, much too much credit for having an actual plan when there's been no evidence at any point in the last year that they've had one. But that would be the only way in the world that the way they're handling this would make sense to me.
And I think I read a quote, and once again, it's on the internet, so who knows if it's real. Somebody asked Jerry if he's ever going to go hands off and pass the team on, and he said, I didn't buy the Cowboys as an investment. I bought it as something to do. Like, this is my job for the rest of my life. Like, he's going to be in there until the wheels fall off, and people are wondering if that has happened, especially with how the team has gone. And Big Mike McCarthy in this coaching cycle could be a hot commodity because he's a culture builder, right, AJ? I never played for him, but he is a guy that I think we're spinning back into, hey, we need somebody that's able to get toughness in here, get everybody rowing in the right direction. You played for him, won a championship with him. He referenced that championship in a press conference not too long ago. He would be a good guy in this particular market, don't you think, Age?
Yeah, I think he is absolute hot commodity, especially like you said, how I feel like the league is kind of, I don't know, in flux to where we're looking at these guys that are culture builders. They are like, hey, this guy's the boss. He knows how to set things and get us in the right place, moving in the right direction. So I think Big Mike, it looks good. He's also an offensive guy. He was a great play caller for a long time, has been. He could call the plays. He could bring somebody else in. But Greeny, that made me think about that Dallas Cowboys job. If they move on from Mike McCarthy, some of these guys we hear are going to have many options, different head coaching positions available to them. Is the Dallas Cowboys job, is that as a coveted job as it was before, especially if you know Jerry Jones is going to be over your shoulder no matter what's happening? Like
that
you
guy
have to
with his
defer to
phone.
him pretty much.
Yeah.
Like that guy with that phone. And if you could clear up, you're a journalist, you know this better than me. Is Jerry Jones doing post pressers from like 1980s? When did they do everybody's microphone just shoved in mouth and around shoulder? But I'll let you finish. I apologize.
Well, because he doesn't. Because the owner doesn't have a press conference after every game. There isn't a podium set up for him. He just walks down there and stands outside the locker room, and everyone comes in what they call a scrum. That's exactly what it is. So it's the most disorganized, ridiculous-looking thing in the world. The answer to your question, AJ, is in a vacuum, that's a terrible job. If you took the star off the helmets, it would be a bad job. It's not a great roster. It figures to probably get a little worse before it gets better. They're paying a quarterback all the money in the world, who I think is very good, but there are like 5 guys in the whole league who I think are genuinely worth what they're paying Dak Prescott, and he isn't one of them. If you could give me Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Mahomes or Lamar, maybe 1 or 2 other guys that are just on a whole other level. So I don't think that's a good situation for winning as far as the roster immediately. And the Jerry of it all, I think, would be a detriment. Almost anyone would look at that as a downside, not an upside. However, there's just something to be said for the Dallas Cowboys. They're so glamorous. They get so much attention. Look how famous you become just being a part of that. Now, you know McCarthy. I don't. He may not give a damn about that stuff, but some people will. And so I don't think Jerry would have a hard time getting himself a coach of some repute. Now, if you're Ben Johnson and you're choosing a spot, if you're, insert whoever else it is you want, would that be your first choice? I'd be surprised if it was.
I heard you say Prime. Obviously, his connection with Jerry Jones is one that we would monitor. You said Sark as well. I didn't know Sark was getting NFL looks.
So on Sunday NFL Countdown, Adam Schefter ran through, and so this stuff kind of got buried. Adam Schefter ran through a whole list. You guys could dig up the tape of it. I wish I could remember what time it was. It was in the second hour of the show. So he ran through the whole list of, these are the coaches that we're keeping an eye on today. I think this one's in. I think this one's out. I think this one's in. I think this one's out. And that got all of the attention.
Leaning out, leaning in, leaning out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That whole shtick. And parenthetically, so far, he's been right about every single one of them. He told me Dayball was coming back. He told me Steichen was coming back. He's been right about everything that he said that day, as an aside. He then said 2 other things that got very little attention because everyone was keeping an eye on Dayball and Steichen and all of these other coaches. He said teams are going to call the Steelers to see if they would be willing to entertain the possibility of trading Mike Tomlin. And he said, expect Steve Sarkisian to be a person whose name you hear at some point in NFL coaching conversations. Now, we didn't bring that part of the soundbite back because it was literally, he said it in like 4 seconds. He didn't expand on it, and we moved on to other things. But he threw that name out there. Now, if you're Steve Sarkisian, are you trying to parlay more money? Whatever the case is, I don't know. This is not my area of expertise. But that name came up from Adam Schefter, who, in my opinion, is the most credible person in the entire industry when it comes to collecting NFL news. So he wouldn't say it on the air if there wasn't something to it. So I think it is a conversation that is being had somewhere. I don't know by who.
I like the way Sark communicates. Every time he comes on game day, he's awesome. feels like his team's obviously loaded with talent. They're in the semifinals. They've had a couple losses, but they've been able to bounce back. His offenses have been awesome to watch. Pro-style offenses, got people ready in there. That'd be intriguing, So you got Prime out of Colorado. You got Sark out of Texas potentially going in. Wasn't Lincoln Riley's name there for a little bit being tossed
Cowboys,
around?
before
For the Cowboys last year.
And then USC kind of ruined that.
USC happened. Oh, speaking of USC, Heisman winner up there, Caleb Williams, is without a head coach. Ty has the last question for you. We appreciate all your time today, Greeny.
Yeah, Greeny.
Always a pleasure.
The Bears actually reached out and wanted an interview with McCarthy. With your Chicago ties, we heard that their kind of hiring committee or search committee is like 30 people or something like that to decide their next head coach. What do you ultimately think the Bears are going to do, and is there any way that they get this right?
No. I mean, history suggests it's very unlikely, and I haven't heard any of these yet, but right before I came on with you guys, I got an email from the Get Up staff that apparently all of the decision-making people in Chicago talked today, which means George McCaskey, who is the owner, Kevin Warren, who is the team president, and Ryan Poles, who is the general manager. And from what I can glean, all three of them had different versions of how this decision is going to get made, which would be a perfect microcosm of what is wrong with that franchise and has been forever. Look, here's the reality. It's a pretty good team. They have a lot of good players. I think Caleb Williams is stunningly gifted. I think he has, under the right circumstances, he could be an unbelievably good player. They just need to get this right. And that person, again, it doesn't have to be an offensive guy. Everyone in Chicago wants them to hire Ben Johnson. Just because Ben Johnson is a brilliant offensive coordinator, which he obviously is, maybe the best we've seen come along in the league in a while, it doesn't mean he'd be a great head coach. It doesn't mean you have to get him as your head coach. You can, as I said about the Jets, hire a great leader. If that's Mike McCarthy, I'm all in. Hire a great leader and then bring in someone who runs an offense that is perfectly suited to the talents. Don't try and jam a round, square, whatever the hell it is, square peg, round hole thing. I always get that wrong.
Yeah,
I never get that thing right.
Jack, correct.
Look at the skill set. Look at this is something I can't do. You guys would have a much better chance of doing it than I would, and the people running the Bears have to be the ones who do this.
I'm sure.
Look at exactly what Caleb Williams does well, and then bring in someone who's going to run the offense that is going to take advantage of those things. Build an offense around what he does. Don't bring in Shane Waldron, who is going to bring his own offense in and try and teach it to Caleb Williams, and that was obviously a square peg in a round hole and whatever it was, and it was a freaking disaster. Bring in someone who is going to run. I would have in an interview, I would say, show me your plan for Caleb Williams. Tell me why this is going to work. And then I would hire the person who gives me the best answer to that.
Okay.